For over 7 years, Finland in Hearts of Iron 4 had the default focus tree. Yeah, one of the most unique countries in World War II had to make do with the same focus tree as Bhutan. No hate to Bhutan, but you get the point. Even the Baltics got their own focus trees before Finland, and we all know what happened to them. But I'll admit, updating all the Nordic countries in the same DLC makes perfect sense. At least more sense than bundling in together the US, Mexico, UK, and the Netherlands. Whatever, the point is that Finland did eventually get its very own focus tree, and it's pretty good. And that's why I'm here to tell you about every way to play Finland in Hearts of Iron 4. I know it's been a while, but we've done this before and you know how this works. But I'll go over a few things really quick for those who are new. 1. I've used all the available DLC in the making of this video, but Arms Against Tyranny is the one with all the unique content for Finland. 2. I use a few cosmetic mods to make the map a bit more readable, but otherwise it's all vanilla Hoi 4. 3. These scenarios were made with the historical mode on, where other countries act mostly how they did in real life. And 4. While the Finnish focus tree is a lot more straightforward than for example the Soviet one, there are still basically infinitely many ways to play Finland. So I'll be mostly sticking to the main focus paths, but there is some additional stuff too. If you know any other interesting ways to play Finland, please tell us in the comments. Okay, that's all. Let's begin. For over 100 years, Finland was a part of Russia. Then in 1917, Russia had a revolution. And then another one. Also, it was losing pretty badly in World War I. At this point, Finland saw its opportunity to declare independence. And rather surprisingly, Soviet Russia was okay with this. Then they lost World War I and collapsed into a civil war. So now, Finland was a fully independent country. However, it too would soon fall into chaos, as the pro-Soviet Reds and nationalist Whites fought in their own civil war, which the White movement eventually won. They then flirted with the idea of establishing a monarchy with a German prince as the king of Finland. But when the German Empire collapsed, that idea wasn't as popular anymore. So in the end, Finland emerged from the chaos as a conservative democracy. After the Civil War, many still feared that another communist revolution would happen. This led to the rise of the fascist Lapua movement, which attempted a coup in 1932. But then the president was like, "Could you please stop that?" So they did. Then the movement was banned, but some fascist elements still remained in Finnish society. So Finland had defeated both a socialist and a fascist revolution, and remained a constitutional democracy all the way to 1936, which is when we take control. By now, the Soviet Union has mostly consolidated under the leadership of Stalin. Germany is remilitarizing under a fascist regime, and France and Britain are kinda just minding their own business. While our relations with other Nordic countries are pretty good, there isn't any kind of formal military alliance between us. For all intents and purposes, we are alone. So neutrality is the name of the game. For now, there isn't much we can do other than build some industry and manage our government. Speaking of which, the president, who many consider to be a national hero, has been losing popularity for a while now, which is why he's replaced in the 1937 election. This doesn't really have an effect on the way we run the country, but at least the people trust him more. It's 1938 and world tension is starting to rise. The aggressive foreign policy of Germany and the political purges in Russia have gotten the European democracies on the edge. That includes us. Let's start investing more in our defensive capabilities. We should also appoint the war hero Field Marshal Mannerheim as the chief of army, and oh boy is he good at his job. Unfortunately, our military buildup is hampered by our limited conscription laws, which we aren't allowed to raise until we're officially at war. Also, we're still unable to get any security guarantees from anyone. We are still alone. The year 1939 is upon us, and things in Europe are looking pretty bad. Germany has broken their treaty with the Allies and occupied Czechoslovakia. Any further aggression would most certainly lead to war with the West. Oh no. In shocking news, Germany and the Soviet Union have signed the Non-Aggression Pact. This basically means that everything the Soviets want in Eastern Europe they can take without German intervention, and that most likely includes us. Not soon after, Europe engulfs in war. The Allies wouldn't dare to take on the Soviet Union at the same time as Germany, so now we're definitely alone would the Soviets invade us. We gotta get our military industry rolling and build more forts on our border with Russia. And what's this? The Soviets want to move our border further away from Leningrad, meaning we'd have to give away the state of Karjala. Yeah, right. We've seen what happens when you give in to the demands of aggressors. It's better to just say no from the start. Let's move our troops to the borders and wait to see what happens. The Soviets declare war. This might be one of the most lopsided conflicts in history. The Red Army has over 10 times more divisions than us. But we won't give in. Surprisingly enough, we actually managed to stop the initial push. The whole nation unites in the fight against a foreign enemy. Since Stalin purged many of his most competent military leaders, the Soviets have a hard time adapting to our mastery of winter warfare. Our snipers also strike fear into Russian soldiers, one of them even being nicknamed the White Death. Looks like this war isn't a lost cause after all. Unfortunately, our requests for help keep going unanswered, and what small aid we get isn't enough to turn the tide of the war. Despite our initial successes, it's pretty obvious that in a war of attrition, Finland will always lose to a great power. Looks like the Soviets finally broke our defenses. Well, it was a good fight, but it seems that the end is near. Except what's this? The Soviets want to sign a peace treaty. Well, there isn't much else we can do. The war is over, and Soviet troops withdraw from our territory. In return, we must cede them Karjala and Salla. Even though the peace deal saved us from a full occupation, many are bitter over the loss of territory. It's kind of an open secret that would the chance to reclaim these lost territories arise, we would be right on it. It's also pretty obvious that the Soviets don't consider this war to be fully over. But hey, it looks like we have finally found ourselves a potential ally, as Germany has become more open to cooperation. Apparently they have a secret plan to invade the Soviet Union, and they would want us to join in. And hell yeah, we're in. Not in the Axis though, we won't be joining that. Almost a year has gone by since the start of the Winter War, and our president has kicked the bucket. His place was taken by Risto Ryti, who has dreams of taking even more than what we lost to the Soviets. It's 1941. Germany has just broken their non-aggression pact and invaded the Soviet Union. At the same time, we declare war on the Soviets. However, we still don't join the Axis, nor do we declare war against any of the Western allies. The Soviets are our only enemy. Initially, our invasion is very successful, and in just a few months we have already taken back our lost lands. But this is our chance to go even further. Many in Finland have long had a dream of Greater Finland, which would include the lands of our Karelian brothers who were left behind when we gained independence. This would also make our border much easier to defend, which sounds like a legitimate reason for what in all honesty has turned into a war of conquest. However, our push eventually stalls, and the borders of Greater Finland are still far away. Well, at least we can count on Germany to finish the Soviets, and then we can... Germany just lost almost 1 million men in Stalingrad, and now the Russians are pushing them back. We might just be cooked. This war has now become a repeat of the Winter War, as we are once again on the defensive. Except this time, the Red Army is good. Maybe if we just defend long enough, they might consider a separate peace deal with us, in order to focus on Germany. Unfortunately, our president had promised Germany that his government wouldn't sign any separate peace deals, and our territory is still full of German soldiers. But he has agreed to resign so that Mannerheim can create a new government, which can now sign the peace deal. And there we go. Total defeat was averted once again. We unfortunately had to give away Petsamo and lose our access to the North Sea, but at least we maintained our independence. Now we still have to kick out the Germans. Okay, cool. They burned all of Lapland as they left. Well, at least it's over now. The world is once again at peace, and we, despite being on the losing side, managed to maintain our sovereignty. And that is a miracle if we look at what happened to the rest of Eastern Europe. Our first post-war president is trying his best to keep the Soviets happy, since they do have quite a lot of influence on us. A new kind of war has started between democracy and communism, and we are right in the middle of it. Alone. Can neutrality save us this time? I sure hope so. Look, while our president is not currently that popular, he has proven that he can lead us through times of crisis. And that's exactly what we need now, as it's obvious that the Soviets are eyeing to get back their influence in Finland. We will work to better our president's image and campaign against his opposition, so that in the 1937 election he wins another term. Get out! Now that his rule is secure, we can start building up industry and the military. In just a few years, everyone likes the president again, and our country is stronger than ever. Unfortunately, our recruitment laws are still very strict, which greatly limits the amount of divisions we can train. We can only wait for a declaration of war to conscript more people. Speaking of which, the Soviets have just sent us an ultimatum over the transfer of Karelia. And we of course tell them to piss off, which means the start of the Winter War. Our lines are holding surprisingly well, and a division just barely managed to land in the remilitarized Åland, despite the Soviet submarine raids. Now we can finally raise our conscription level and start training new divisions. Looks like we survived the hardest part, as the Soviets failed to breach our defenses. However, they managed to land a naval invasion in the east, but we were prepared for that. Also, here's a nice trick we can use to chip down the Soviet army. We'll let them hold one port city, where they'll keep sending more and more divisions. Now we can just easily destroy them. This will help a bit, but it's really just a drop in the bucket, since the Soviets have like 200 divisions. For over a year, we managed to keep the Soviets at bay. They keep launching increasingly more frustrating naval invasions, but each time we squash them. At the same time, we have finally researched a high enough level of construction technology that it lets us enact political reform. Okay. We'll continue pursuing the president's and his party's agenda. In the summer of 1941, the tide of war turns completely as Germany declares war on the Soviet Union. The Soviets immediately transfer the bulk of their army to the German front. This means that we can finally start our counterattack. And just like that, we have captured Leningrad. The Soviets are finally willing to negotiate for peace with us. However, we shouldn't just settle for a white peace, as we could actually get something out of this war. If we just manage to capture enough of their Karelian territories, we could demand them in the peace deal too. And there we go. Now send the peace terms to the Soviets. And they accept. The war is over. The Winter War has ended in a tremendous victory for us, and we have finally achieved Greater Finland. Not only that, but our president is ridiculously popular, and his party finally has enough support to do something they failed to do 20 years ago. Yes, we are now the Greater Kingdom of Finland. But who should we crown as our king? Perhaps a Finnish war hero, loved by basically everyone? Hell no. Let's crown the son of the first guy we tried to make our king. We want a German monarch like everyone else. Okay, now we are a monarchy, just like every other Scandinavian country. Well, at least Sweden still exists. The only question remaining is what do we do now? We didn't carve our foreign policy in stone during the war, so we do have some options. We naturally have pretty good ties to Germany, with the whole German king thing, but I don't know if our independence is really secure with Germany as the dominant power in Europe. Should we maybe join the Allies and fight on the side of our former enemy against our former ally? Nah, that would be too far. Maybe we should just sit this one out. Yeah, let's form the Northern League with Sweden and the Baltics, and we'll stay neutral for the time being. Maybe when the war is about to end, we can join in and see if we can get something out of it. But for now, we shall enjoy some of that peace we fought so hard for. Since the greatest threat to our independence is a communist great power, maybe we should seek protection from their natural enemy, a fascist great power. And as it would happen, there is exactly one of those in Europe, Germany. But cooperation between us would work the best if we adopted their form of government. So, let's hire fascist advisors and let them quietly start preparing a military coup. Good thing that our president, the guy who literally put an end to a fascist rebellion 4 years ago, seems to be A-OK with it this time. Okay, we finally have enough support to launch the coup. Let's go. The pro-democratic forces have started a civil war, which we can easily win with German-bought equipment, and the tried-and-true tactic of changing our whole army into artillery only before the civil war starts. Great, now we are fascist, and we immediately join the Axis. I feel a lot safer already. Just like Germany, we should also build up our military, which is much easier now since we can actually conscript people. And by 1939, our army is already larger than the rest of Scandinavia combined. And... okay. Germany has signed a non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union, which means that the Soviets cannot attack either of us. This isn't exactly what I had in mind when we joined the Axis, but hey, it works for me. A war with the Soviet Union has been completely avoided with the power of diplomacy. With this great opportunity, we will join Germany in World War II. I mean, come on, we gotta put our new army to use somehow. Finnish troops fight in Poland, Norway, France, and even North Africa. The war seems to be going well for us, and we're far enough from Britain to completely avoid their bombing raids. It's almost like we're not even at war. With our success, we proclaim ourselves as the keepers of the North and demand the transfer of all Nordic territories to us. Okay, Germany gave us Denmark. Cool. The US gave us Greenland. That's nice. And the UK gave us Faroe Islands. Wait a second. Our progress does stall somewhat, as Germany can't seem to land an invasion in Great Britain. Well, as long as we keep up the effort and the bulk of the war is fought far away from us, I think we'll end up just fine. And what's that? Germany is going to invade Russia. Oh shit. With the surprise attack on the Soviets, we managed to pretty quickly conquer Karelia, Murmansk, and even Leningrad, while our allies push into multiple key cities. Annexing the rest of Karelia has been a dream of many in Finland, especially those in the academic Karelian society. So it's only natural that with this great victory, we proclaim the creation of Greater Finland and adopt this cool as hell flag. With our new core states, we can conscript even more people, which is great because we're losing a ton of men pushing into Russia. Despite all their losses, the Soviets just refuse to surrender, and eventually our advance stops completely. Making things even worse is the fact that one of our allies, Italy, has just switched sides, and Allied bombing raids have finally reached us too. Suddenly, the Red Army got good, and they start pushing us back. While we retreat to more defensible positions, the German army seems to be crumbling under the pressure, and an Allied landing in France doesn't make things any better. As we somewhat managed to stop the Soviet counteroffensive, maybe we should ask for a separate peace deal with them. Except now that we're a full Axis member, we can't claim that we're fighting a separate war, and the Allies won't accept anything but a total unconditional surrender. We might be cooked. In fall of 1945, Germany capitulates to the Allies, and we as a minor nation have to surrender alongside them. It's over. In the peace negotiations, Finland falls under Soviet control, and they take over our whole civilian industry as war reparations. Our population is devastated, the economy ruined, and our autonomy gone. We're now nothing more than an exploited buffer state in the Soviets' fight against the West. After a civil war where the whites won over the reds, and another civil war where the whiter whites won over the less white whites, in the end, the reds ended up on top. As joining the Axis didn't really work out, maybe we should try something else. I mean, it could have worked pretty easily if we didn't lose on purpose to make that scenario at least somewhat different from this one, but you know. This time we'll turn fascist by undermining democracy more indirectly. If we hire all fascist advisors and use the fear of an impending communist revolution to our advantage, we can gain enough support to abolish the democratic system completely peacefully. While this is a slower method than fighting a civil war, we do keep our country intact during the whole process. Now, we should maintain good relations with Germany, but skip joining their faction, as we don't want our security to depend on them. Instead, we'll focus on diplomatically dominating the North by creating our own faction, the Finnish Supremacy League. I sure hope that we have some damn good diplomats, because who the hell would willingly join a faction called that? And apparently, our diplomats are world class, because with just a bit of political power, we can convert Sweden, Norway, and the Baltics to fascism, and then invite them to our faction. Denmark, however, is really stubborn and won't abandon their neutrality no matter what, but we'll take care of that soon. With our alliance nearly complete, we can now convince Sweden and Norway to give away their independence and become a part of us. As a result, we get their armies, generals, navies, as well as corps on their territory, and more importantly, war goals on Denmark and Iceland, which we use to immediately declare war on them. Denmark might want to surrender immediately, but we won't accept that, as we want to conquer them and Iceland completely, because when we do, we can then proclaim the Nordic Empire. Our population more than quadrupled from this simple move. Now we can also integrate Estonia, because they'd be more than happy to be a part of the Nordics. We are now the new great power in Europe, and a leader of a faction with 2 other members still in it. Now, I personally would leave the Supremacy League after seeing literally every other member be annexed, but I do admire the loyalty. Now, it's 1939, and it's obvious that the Soviets will soon invade us. But just maybe we should take the fight to them and catch them off guard. We can stir separatist sentiments in Karelia and covertly arm their rebels. When we're ready, we can help them instigate a rebellion. Because they really can't take on all of Russia alone, they agree to become our puppet, and the last kinship war has begun. The Soviets were totally unprepared for an uprising like this, so we easily push into their underdefended territories. They then try to strike our allies, but we were prepared for that too. In a few months, the front lines solidify as we run out of equipment, but so do the Soviets, and we can actually build up faster. In the following 2 years, we launch offensive after offensive, destroying more and more of the Soviet army and industry. In 1941, Germany joins the war, but their help is barely even needed at this point. Just 3 years of fighting is enough to bring down all of Russia. As the Nordic Empire, we naturally take all the states in the north and turn what remains into puppets. Even Latvia and Lithuania got little something out of the war. Good for them. We annexed them a few months later. Karelia was also fully integrated into the empire. While we have succeeded in our main goal of destroying the Soviet Union, we have the opportunity to go even further. With our newly captured industry, we start a massive naval and aerial buildup. Then we join World War II and launch a sneaky invasion into Great Britain. With the help of the other Axis powers, we eventually force the British to capitulate. Now only the US remains. Luckily, we have a perfect opportunity to launch a naval invasion from Greenland. After a long and tedious campaign, even the giant falls, and the war is over. The Nordic Empire now controls the north. Yes, all of it. From Canada to Scotland to Siberia. All of it belongs to the Nordics. But is this really what we wanted? Once again, Finland is just a part of yet another empire. I mean, yeah, we do basically lead it, but still. Is it really Finland's destiny to not have its name on the world map? No, it's not. Time to rebrand to Greater Finland. Everyone must learn to speak Finnish. I mean, come on, it's not that hard. While our relations with the other great powers are at least somewhat good, we gotta keep our eyes on the Koreans. You never know what those guys are up to. The winds of politics are changing in Finland. The Social Democrats have started campaigning aggressively, and their support is rising rapidly at the expense of the ruling party. Could it be that filling your cabinet with your political opponents might just do that? Either way, early elections are called and the Social Democrats win easily. The president resigns and his place is taken by Väinö Tanner. Despite the shift to the left, we don't just start glazing the Soviets. Quite the opposite. We completely denounce the Soviet style of socialism and start improving relations with the democratic great powers. We even ask them to guarantee our independence, and now they're willing to do that. Okay, why not before? Well, I guess we didn't declare neutrality this time, so maybe there's that. So now, in a case of a Soviet invasion, the British and the French would come to our aid. It's amazing that the Allies risk having to fight two great powers at the same time just to protect our independence. Next, we look down south, to Estonia. We offer to extend the Allied security guarantees to them too, but only if they agree to be annexed. While initially hesitant, they eventually agree to the proposal after we sign a non-aggression pact and guarantee their independence. Really? That's what convinced you. But we promise, you won't regret this. It's September 1939, Germany has invaded Poland and France and Britain immediately declare war on Germany. Just a few months later, the Soviet Union sends us demands for Karelia. Yeah right, you ain't getting anything. We are ready to fight you. The public opposes rearmament. Really? Now? Well, the Soviets declare war and we formally join the Allies. Now the Allies are simultaneously fighting the two strongest countries on the continent. However, we won't be joining the war against Germany, at least yet. We have to focus on one enemy at a time. The Finns and Estonians fight side by side and manage to halt the initial Soviet push. However, the sudden annexation of Latvia and Lithuania opens a new front in the south and our defenses get overwhelmed. Unfortunately, we can't stop the Soviets from taking Estonia, and we must evacuate our troops to mainland Finland. But we won't give up the fight. We will liberate our brothers one day. Oh, Germany is invading Norway now. They'd really like to secure that Swedish iron trade they have going on. But I have a plan. Maybe we could ask for a temporary occupation of northern Norway and Sweden, and we could take all those resources for ourselves. Norway is more than happy to save some of their territory from German occupation, but Sweden is much more hesitant. And it's pretty understandable. I mean, they would have to give away their most resource-rich areas, and in return, they get literally nothing. But the good old non-aggression pact plus guarantee independence is enough to sway their mind. Perfect. And remember, this is just a temporary thing. While our allies are struggling against Germany, our newly gained resources boost our war effort significantly. It's summer 1941, and the Germans have decided to make this a three-way war. Their surprise invasion completely breaks cohesion in the Red Army, and we can easily start pushing. Remember the Greater Finland movement? Yeah, we ain't doing that. That was more of a thing within the conservative spheres, and their rule is now over. Instead, we'll form the Grand Finnish Federation, which is totally different. Not only do we get cores on some of the Soviet lands, but also parts of the temporarily occupied Swedish and Norwegian territories. But hey, there's no need to worry, guys. At this point, we're fighting the Soviets side by side with the Germans. I know this looks a bit bad, but you know how the saying goes. The enemy of my enemy is a friend. Even if they're the enemy of our real friends, as long as our enemy is also the enemy of our friends. Eventually, the Soviets crumble under the pressure, and they fully capitulate. The peace negotiations were pretty uncomfortable, but we took our rightful territory and as much as we could in the north, while our allies took much of eastern Siberia. The rest went to Germany. Now we can finally join the war against Germany and put an end to this madness. Fighting continues for years, but in the end, the Axis powers eventually fall. Team Democracy has won. Both Germany and Russia were divided into multiple occupation zones, and democratic governments were installed in former Axis countries. Eventually, both Germany and Russia were allowed to unify under democratic governments, but both of them had to relinquish territory to their neighbors. After the war, Finland became the prominent power in Scandinavia. The temporary occupation of the Nordic iron fields became very much permanent, making Finland basically a pariah in the eyes of the Scandinavians. Without a single common enemy, the previously united front of the Allies fractured into multiple smaller factions, each pursuing their own goals. Only time will tell whether this new era of global democracy will bring in peace and prosperity or let the world slip into chaos once again. It's 1937, the Social Democrats have won the elections and they're now running the country. While the Soviets aren't the best possible neighbors, maybe we should at least try to better the relations between us. It could lead to a longer peace. Okay, now that the diplomatic situation is a bit warmer, we could try to create a Finno-Soviet pact in hopes to get the Soviets to respect our independence. And they accept. They even agreed to guarantee our independence, but in turn we had to give them military access and docking rights. While this is slightly concerning, we've at least secured a non-aggression pact. Now that our eastern border is secure, we should start seeking allies in Scandinavia, but apparently we must annex Estonia before we can do that. Okay, yeah, that works for me. Now we can propose a new alliance with the Nordic countries. And everybody accepted. Nice. We're now the leader of the Northern Defense Front, and the Nordics will fight side by side against anyone who seeks to oppress us. It's 1939 and World War II has just started. Looks like our diplomatic efforts paid off, as the Soviets don't seem to be interested in any territorial concessions from us. However, our good ally Denmark has just been invaded by Germany. We immediately rushed to their aid, but the German tanks are too quick for us and we are forced to retreat to Sweden. Unfortunately, Denmark falls under occupation, but at least we are able to defend Sweden from a much more secure position. Not soon after, France collapses, but the Allies continue fighting in Africa, and the Northern Defense Front stands firm. Every few months, the Axis powers try to land naval invasions in Norway, but their troops are always swiftly destroyed. The war grinds to a halt. It's 1942, and I feel like something should be happening. Looks like Germany is too afraid to start a war with the Soviets. Maybe failing to beat a few tiny Nordic countries has shaken their confidence about taking on another great power in the East. But in 1943, they finally declare war on the Soviet Union. And they immediately start losing. Yeah, turns out that economy of conquest doesn't work out that well if you don't conquer anything for 3 years. The northern stalemate breaks when Germany leaves Denmark under-fortified, and the Nordic coalition forces quickly liberate their ally. The Allies also stage landings in occupied France and start advancing into Germany. Yeah, I understand why you hesitated to attack Russia, because that single decision led to your downfall. In the peace negotiations, the Nordic alliance countries make sure that they all get their own occupation zones in Germany. They could now use the German civilian industry to rebuild their own. In this new age of Cold War, one region in Europe manages to play both sides against each other, enriching itself in the process. The Nordic Union has decided to remain neutral, while trading with both sides of the conflict. Quickly, the Nordic region becomes one of the richest in the world, with the hope of maybe one day uniting under a single flag. I heard the Soviets regret not pushing for the border change with us, because Leningrad is looking pretty vulnerable, but it's too late now, and there's nothing they can do about it. Oh, right, we have nukes too. When Finland became independent, there was a chance that just like its former overlord, it would become communist. But the civil war kinda put a stop to that. However, the Whites have been pretty lenient towards leftists after the Civil War. So what if we just try again? You know, hire our cabinet full of communists, do all kinds of operations to prepare for a civil war, convert our army to artillery, and bang! Finnish Civil War Part 2. The Blues versus the Whites, who are actually the Reds, and the Blues are the former Whites. We really couldn't get a better color scheme than this. Whatever, we win easily, and now the communists are in power. Now we can immediately skip 105 days worth of focuses by just manually joining the Comintern. And doing so is sorta supposed to make us a Soviet subject, but not really, like at all. The Soviets get a 10% bonus in consumer goods factories, but that just comes out of thin air, like we aren't paying them anything. We're being let off pretty easy, considering that the Polish and Baltic Soviet-aligned paths straight up make them puppets. But hey, I'm not complaining. Okay, now we're in the Comintern, so what do we do next? Well, what is communism about? If we ask our Soviet ally, their answer is pretty clear. Imperialism and territorial expansion. That is why we will take every opportunity we can to expand our borders. First off, Stalin sees us as such a trustworthy ally that they agreed to give us all this, just like that, which is pretty nice. Next, we can yet again annex Estonia. Then we can demand the liberation of the Sami people from Sweden and Norway. And most of the time, they accept. Oh wait. Most of the time, they accept. Come on. Most of the time, they Sometimes they accept. Like it's possible if you have max relations and non-aggression pacts with them. But you might wanna do some saves coming. And finally, we can get easy war goals on Latvia and Lithuania, which we might as well just use. And this is how much we can get with minimal warfare. Not bad at all. Now we can proclaim the formation of Red Finland. But wait a second, we have 3 different possible rulers and each one of them gets a different buff from this focus. And this guy, who we can get from this focus, receives a daily compliance game bonus, which is always pretty OP. So before we rush to form Red Finland, we should maybe wait a year for our imaginary subsidies to the Soviet Union to be paid, after which we can ask for some more autonomy, which we already had. Now we can appoint Yrjö Leino as our president and establish Red Finland. Completing the focus also gives us war goals on the rest of the Nordic countries, which we could pretty easily conquer, but come on, we just got this nice red color. Do we really want to adopt the same Scandinavian blue yet again? Well, you can do that if you want to, but I'd rather not. Yet. Well, it's 1939, and you know what that means. Except looks like the Allies couldn't afford to guarantee Poland, because they'd rather guarantee Denmark and Norway. So Poland is just dead. Oh well, Germany invades France anyways. While the war is going on, we can just build up and wait for the inevitable German invasion. Well, in the meantime, we could just take over Sweden, because looks like the Allies forgot to guarantee them too. Okay, it's 1941 and the Germans are at our gates. We should focus on the Norwegian front first and push them out of Scandinavia. After that, we can try to protect our Baltic territories, and maybe even push a bit. Or a lot. Is it just me, or does Germany kinda suck at protecting the northern half of their eastern front? Like every single game, their defenses just melt here. Well then, let's just march into Berlin. Or maybe even Amsterdam. Yeah, Germany is sometimes just a total pushover for some reason. And the war is over. Scandinavia and the coast of the Baltic Sea now belongs to the glorious Red Finland. Maybe we should rename the Baltic Sea to Red Sea. That sounds pretty cool, right? I hope no one has taken that name yet. With the outstanding success of Finland and the Soviet Union, the new Iron Curtain falls far more west than the Allies would like. The East has a pretty good leg up on the West in this timeline, as long as the alliance between Finland and the Soviets holds firm. Wait a second. Do I see the Soviets having slightly different communist policies than us? That's literally just as bad as being capitalist. Yeah, we're out. We'd rather be neutral then. Come on, why doesn't anyone know how to be communist anymore? Now there is one more formable we haven't yet done, and it's not that good. It can be formed with either the communist or democratic path, but let's choose communism so that we can do whatever we want. After the Civil War, we want to approach the Soviet Union and sign the Finno-Soviet Pact. But after that, we'll go the Nordic route and form the Northern People's Union. Oh, and we of course annex Estonia. Now we get the option to increase communism in Poland and the Baltics, and then invite them to our faction. But do we really want to involve ourselves in a part of Europe that has been occupied like 4 times in the last 200 years? I don't think so. We'll let them be. While we still have good relations with the Soviets, we should demand the liberation of the Sami territories. And this time, all three countries accept just like that. But that's where our cooperation with the Soviets end, because now we'll establish the Confederated Finno-Russian Republics, a rival union to the United Soviet Socialist Republics. Well, World War II has started, and Poland and the Baltics have been destroyed. What did I tell you? Now the Soviets won't even try to demand Karelia because we signed the pact before. However, Denmark and Norway are the next ones in line of German aggression. But there is no need to worry. We'll just kick them from the faction, so that we can fully focus on the Soviets. Yeah, you see that this path doesn't really give us anything to work with. Okay, it's late 1940, and we just casually cancelled the non-aggression pact. Also, our spies have been hard at work, and we have built a collaboration government in the USSR. So now, we declare war. We make some good progress into Russia, and we can start integrating some of their states. Unfortunately, our industry and manpower pool are still pretty small, and our advance slows down. Sweden is also not really helping us, like at all. But at least we finally convinced them to become communist. Soon Germany should also start their war against the USSR, which will take away some of the pressure from us. Except who is justifying against us now? Germany? What? That sure as hell ain't historical. Oh my god. We can't take on both of them at the same time. Guess it's a restart. Okay, this time they declared war on the Soviets and we can finally start pushing again. And what's that? Sweden, what? Sweden couldn't stop the anti-communist revolution after they turned communist and the rebels joined the Axis. I just can't take this anymore. Okay, everything's going great so far. Good, good. And we can finally integrate Leningrad and make it our new capital. Or not, I guess. Whatever. And now that we have integrated everything we can, it's time to release a collaborationist Russia. This is Finno-Russian Russia, and it will take over the rest of the Soviet Union. And the war is over. We got most of the territory, but some of that unfortunately went to Germany. But no worries, we have more than enough industry to prepare for a final liberation of our people. And maybe all the workers of Eastern Europe too. Sorry Germany, I know you just beat the Soviets, but you don't even know how much crap we had to deal with. And there. After years of grueling fighting, World War II is finally over. Germany was divided between East and West. And pro-Finno-Russian communist governments were installed in many liberated Eastern European countries. Some reorganizing was also planned to promote unity between different peoples in the Eastern Bloc. As a result, Finno-Russian Austria-Hungary and Finno-Russian Poland-Lithuania were formed. The world is now firmly split into two camps, led by two very different superpowers. Only time will tell which side will emerge victorious from this new era of Cold War. You know Finland and Estonia are best buds, always fighting side by side. At least whenever we annex them. But they are two nations united by a common heritage. So what if we flip this dynamic on its head and play Finland by playing Estonia? That's right. The Estonian fascist path is kinda like a simpler version of fascist Finland. We start with some marches around the country to boost fascism, and before the summer, we have already turned fascist. Now we immediately join the Axis, because why not? Then we work to get war goals on our Baltic neighbors, which we can easily conquer. Now we can form the Baltic Unitary State, and we are already decently strong. But before we set our eyes on Finland, we want to start baiting guarantees from the Allies, so let's justify war goals on random democracies in Europe. Okay, now let's organize some marches in Finland until they have like 90% fascism support in 1938. Yeah, seems like our foreign propaganda is much more effective than their own. Now when we do the march in Helsinki, the president resigns and now Finland, just like us, is fascist. And finally, we can unite our countries and proclaim the Estonia-Finland League. And look, it's almost like we're playing Finland again. But we're not done yet. There is one more nation we can form, if we just get the states for it. We can start by uniting the Sami, aka getting war goals on Sweden and Norway. And by now, the world tension is high enough for the Allies to ruin our expansionist dreams, so we can only hope that they have guaranteed enough countries for them not to intervene in our wars. Let's go. There we go. We are now the masters of Scandinavia. With our new puppets, Esto-Finnish Sweden and Esto-Finnish Norway, we can start preparing for liberation of Karelia and the rest of the Finnic peoples. Except looks like Germany really wants to sign a non-aggression pact with the Soviets. This would really throw a wrench into our plans, so we must do something about this. Hey Germany, one more day for the pact to be finished, right? Okay. We declare war on the Soviet Union now. And you're joining in too. That's a good pair of headlines. Our army is already pretty damn strong, and with the help of Germany, we can push this 1939 Soviet Union back without much trouble. Soon Germany declares war on Poland, and even though they are guaranteed by Britain, Poland decides to join the Comintern, which prevents a two-front war for now. Funnily enough, every single country Germany and Italy declare war on decides to join the Comintern, while the Allies just watch from the side. Is this a good strategy? Let both of your opponents battle to death while you just chill in the corner. I guess we will find out soon enough. The Soviet Union is a total mess at this point, and it only takes a few years for them to capitulate. In the peace negotiations, we take all these northern territories with Finno-Ugric peoples, and the rest can go to Germany. And now they declare war on the Allies. Okay, France and Britain, did your strategy work out? We could join in if we wanted to, but at this point the US is already in the Allies, so I'd just rather enjoy our victory. Now that we have built up enough compliance in our annexed territories, we can finally form the Empire of Finno-Ugria. And there, we have formed the ultimate version of Finland. Or Estonia. So, if you're having trouble playing Finland, just try Estonia. But only if you don't have no compromise, no surrender active, because it made literally everything harder and more complicated. I mean, almost nothing we just did is possible with that DLC on, so maybe turn it off if you want to try this. There is one more secret way to play Finland. I'll tell you how it works. Pick literally any path, it doesn't matter which you choose. Then when 1939 rolls around and the Soviets start demanding stuff from you, just accept. And now you're completely safe. Turns out there are no additional demands the Soviets can make. That's all there is. This way you even get to keep Salla and Petsamo. Now you can just sit back and watch as the world burns around you. Is this any fun? Hell nah, don't do this. And there you go. 10 ways, okay that was really just 9. 9 ways to play Finland in Hoi 4. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching, and bye bye.